Soul Expressions. From the inner to the outer, the highest and lowest. The expression of the soul into reality. A weekly discussion with the emphasis on the soul's journey through the dimensions, the process of expression from the world of thought to the world of manifestation. With Andrew Narcissus and J.J. Perron. You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
And welcome everybody to a new episode of Soul Expressions. And today we are joined by Michael Monk, and we'll be joined by Jay Perrin and possibly Peter Shelton a little bit later on. Michael, welcome.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
I'm glad that you're able to hear. Earlier today we had an outstanding 2-hour interview on my normal show on Revolution Radio at the 2 to 4 time slot. And I asked you to come on because we had such outstanding experiences. And I believe we're joined by JP. JP, are you there?
Yes, I am.
And welcome, JP. How are you doing today?
Usual thing. It must be my snack time at this moment, because every time I start this show, I've got a sandwich.
It's JP's snack hour.
Somebody's having a sound.
So Michael, why don't you give people a quick introduction of who you are, and then we'll go into the show.
Sure. Well, once again, my name is Michael Monk, and in the spiritual community, I'm a teacher of energy mastery, mind mastery, and empowerment. I've been teaching publicly for about 2 years now through my website, which is avatarenergymaster.com. And would you like me to just give a brief history on myself?
A brief one.
Okay. Well, I had an interesting dive into all of this. I wasn't seeking it. I was just your normal person in their mid-20s, and watching a TV show when I felt an energy come into me and a presence that spoke with audible telepathy. So in other words, I knew it was speaking through my mind, but I could also hear it in my ears. And it asked me to turn the TV off, and I asked it who it was. First I thought it might be my grandfather, and it answered yes to that. I felt another presence in the same energy that felt like my cousin who had recently passed. I asked if that's you, and it said yes. So obviously that confused me, and so I said I'm confused, and I was given an inner vision, like I had you could say a third eye opening, though at the time I didn't know what it was. And what I saw that the presence talking to me was an endless host of light beings in human form that were all connected and speaking telepathically as one voice. And at the time my upbringing was religion, so I assumed I was talking to God, which I was, but my definition of God since then has vastly changed. So I got really excited. I said, Father, is this what it's like on the other side? We're all connected and we share thoughts and feelings. And the voice said, you have finally met me, and now you can ask me any questions. And we dialogued for a while. All of my questions were biblical in nature because I was raised in religion. But it kept leading me away from that and telling me things about the nature of reality, like how it's constructed and everything. After that, I was pretty much on fire, so I went searching to the best of my ability. And like I said, at the time, it was religion, so I started reading the Bible and about Jesus and everything. And what I developed was like feeling a presence. When I would be on the right track, I would get a vibration and a pleasant feeling through my system. When I was on the wrong track, I would get an adrenaline or a sinking feeling in my stomach. So as I was reading the Bible, I was receiving like lots of truth, maybe not necessarily as it's written in the book, but it was, I was learning a lot of truth out of that, and I started beginning to pray and actually receive miracles, or what you could call miracles, via praying. The first one was I just accidentally had a bad accident. I got stabbed in the left eyeball with a really sharp object and was bleeding profusely and didn't know what to do. And I was really scared, who wants to lose an eye? So, being that I had talked to God, I got on my knees and prayed to God and Jesus, and my whole body vibrated, and I got up and looked in the mirror, and the eye was instantly healed. The blood vanished and everything. It was, obviously that'll shock you to the core if that happens. And, over the course of 8 years, I just continued trying to find the pure truth in religion, and it never really fully lined up to what this presence was teaching me. Like things like that we live multiple lives, or what could be called reincarnation, and other truths like all of us being connected and speaking telepathically. No, that's not in any churches. So, over the course of 8 years, I received a couple more prayer miracles, healing others, changing the weather in my area, things like that. It wasn't until 2008 that I began to really open up and understand the mechanism behind all of this. The 2012 movement led me to search on the internet, and I found David Wilcock talking about it, and he kept quoting from a source that he called the Law of One. So I was like, okay, let me check this out. So I started reading the Law of One, which is a channeling of a energy being known as Ra. And in this channeling, it speaks a lot of vibration and form, that everything is really a vibration, and that it's consciousness that creates the matter via the act of observation. And that really sunk in as a truth, and that vibrational feeling that I called the Holy Ghost was backing it up. And that amazed me, because this is material that a couple hundred years ago would get you burned at the stake. And here's the holy presence of God telling me that it's true. So when I really grabbed inside of my mind that everything is vibration, I got an intense, I guess you could say, download of energy. And at the same time, that the voice came to me in pure telepath again and said, I want you to go outside and get away from people. So I went out back. I was working at the time. I went out back, and when I stopped walking, when I was away from people and became still, all of the world around me began to shift and morph and vibrate rapidly, almost like coming off of a top, but multicolored, like rainbow spectrum. Then I examined my body at the same time. I looked down at my body, and my body began to do the same exact thing. I started to become transparent, and my body was like disappearing and merging with this fluctuating, morphing energy field. And I got a little scared, because I didn't know, understand what was happening to me. And I thought, what if I can't rematerialize? And when I had that thought, it instantly snapped me back into the physical perception. And obviously that'll blow you away and get you to seek further. Within, I'd say about 6 months after that, I learned how to open up to that type of perception, without having the aid of the higher energy or the presence that I called God, via clairvoyance, by relaxing the consciousness, by merging the mind hemispheres and everything. So I learned how to get into the energy perception at will, and that's when things really started kicking off. So for about three years, I devoted every single moment of my spare time to entering into this absolute energy perception and playing with it, seeing how all things relate. Getting really deep into clairvoyance to where I can see my thoughts as energy, to where I could see orbs and vortexes and presences within the energy. When I was doing this, at first my perception was that I'm a small being inside of a vast sea of energy. That changed one night as I contemplated that I'm not my body, that I'm actually the energy itself. And when that contemplation fully hit me, the energy like collapsed into me and then splashed out, almost like if you can imagine when a star is birthed, that collapsing point where the energy just rushes out of it after being collapsed in. That's pretty much what happened to me. So, and my mind actually traveled out with it. So all of a sudden I've got this awareness that's past my body and into my whole environment. So I start feeling everything as a part of myself. And this is what really opened up the door to me becoming a teacher, because all of a sudden I started becoming telekinetic as a side effect. Like the wind started responding to me, the water started responding to me, the weather started responding to me, because my mind was actually present in it. So, for about a good year, I traveled the country with nothing but a suitcase and a laptop, and staying with people and teaching in exchange, teaching and healing in exchange for room and board. When I met my current partner that I'm with, Francesca, and she's got a lot of technical savvy, so she suggested that we put together a website and offer this to a broad spectrum of the public. And that's when we founded AvatarEnergyMaster.com. It was about at the beginning or summer of 2011, and I've been teaching ever since.
That's a really good story, and it adds to what we heard earlier today. And for those people that didn't hear the show we did a 2-hour interview with Michael and Peter, both of AvatarEnergyMastery.com, and we got into some pretty serious subjects. And I want to take the governors off this interview and go in a little bit of a different direction. Many of the people here are well aware of multidimensional beings of themselves, living past lives. My co-host Jay Perry is a 7th ray reader. Are you familiar with that at all?
7th ray, so like the violet and purple range, or?
No, all 7 rays, the whole spectrum.
The whole spectrum.
Okay, yeah. I see what you're saying. The primary.
Yeah, it's an ancient teaching that came through the Himalayas and was published in the early part of last century, called the Alice Bailey Work. And it's channelings from a live Tibetan, and it's about the nature of reality, which is that we're in seven natured hologram.
Okay.
So but each different frequency, each different ray has its own quality, and from those qualities you get the different feelings. The blends of qualities, and it's like music. It's like you have different keys that produce different emotional effects in the listener.
Yeah.
Different tempos that do that, and that's because of the ray that they're on.
Right.
Because everything is a ray. Everything's vibration. We all share this, and what the 7 rays does is actually take that kind of broad brushstroke idea and condense it into a much more fractal-oriented, universally applicable kind of way of looking at things.
Nice.
As above, so below. So, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And over the past 3 months of JP and us doing the show, we've explored the 7 rays, multidimensional beings, dealing with ghosts, all sorts of subjects. So the people that listen to this show are quite familiar. So what I'd like to do is take this into a little bit more of how the energy works. Each of us has a perspective of how empowerment works. Mm-hmm. And your story is so much a big part of empowerment. JP had a life-altering experience with a motorcycle when he was young. You just told us your story. I had an experience when I was 9 years old, and I was at a baseball game, and I downloaded the Acacia records of all 80,000 people in the stadium when someone hit a home run in the bottom of the 9th inning. So each of us have had either traumatic or non-traumatic experiences that change us. Now let's kind of get into the change itself and how we've dealt with it.
Yeah, it's not necessarily easy at all. Primarily because you're excited about what you're experiencing, because human wants to believe in things past this life or beyond this life. And so when it begins to happen to you, it's your joy and desire to share it. And, quite naturally, when you share it with the people around you, you hit a lot of speed bumps. People get worried about you. Your sanity gets questioned, all sorts of things. So that part of the experience was actually pretty traumatic to me. You could say that I'm quite familiar with the inside of mental hospitals because I spent a decent amount of time in them at the request of my family because, they were worried about me. And when I decided that I'm not going to take the mind-altering psychic drugs that they prescribed me to dumb me down so that I can't experience this, and I just said, you know what, screw it, I know this stuff is real and I know it's my calling and I'm diving headfirst into it. When I did that, I pretty much lost all of my friends and experienced a separation from my family for a decent amount of time. So it was really hard on me, to actually hold my ground and stand in my truth and pursue all of this, regardless of all of that. And not to mention that the extremity of my experiences, were hard on my ego mind to adjust to.
Oh yeah, and it was tough for mine too. JP, you want to relate how it was for you having to adapt?
Well, it was like I was an egg that had been broken. I really felt delicate, not broken, but cracked. So the shell, normally hard, normally able to carry weight and things like that, unable to do so. Just like a broken shell. And it took me a long time to kind of repair that, but I went to a faith healer and, he fixed me in like 30 seconds. And, then his wife said, you can do this. And I thought, oh, that's weird. But because I was a really skeptical sort of, technical guy. So I've now become a kind of skeptical, technical kind of believing kind of discovering himself to be a ghost whisperer kind of guy.
So you're like the tech support for having ghost issues?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been good at remote support, which is like, when somebody's on the phone, you have to use their vocal communication as your eyes. The first thing I say is, what are you looking at? Because sometimes they could be looking out the window and then the computer's, not even switched on. But it kind of, I suppose it's given me a sense of, I've been doing this for like 40 years, no, not 40 years, more than 30 years at least, of advising people on how to get the way out of where they are in their computer thing. And most of the time I'm successful. Yeah. So, and I think that is part of being able to tune into what people are saying and almost look through their eyes. It's quite odd. It's quite nice. And I think it's a kind of techno healing kind of thing. Techno shamanism.
Science will have to come to terms with spirituality, and spirituality will come to terms with science, because that's truly what the change is about. When science and spirituality let go of ignorance and intolerance, we will expand this world a trillionfold.
Absolutely. I mean, science already has it. They just don't believe their own science, mechanics and the particle beam experiment where it changes based on the observation of the observer, yet they have a big time problem that I can make clouds disappear or change the direction of the wind when their own science backs it up.
This is the thing, that science is itself a religion. It's just like Galileo, or just like the church, with Galileo. And it's in the same position, and it's basically going to have to let go. And really, very soon, it really won't matter. We'll be discovering it for ourselves. There won't be anyone to talk about this kind of stuff. We're just going to have to discover it for ourselves. And we'll see things happening like, why is it where I'm standing, there's a great big circle of no cloud above me, and where you're standing, there's a great big dark cloud? Why is that? Those kind of questions will arise.
Quite literally. and where one city will perceive one set of stars and another city will perceive another set of stars. This is as fractal dating of reality begins to be begun to understood. And Michael, earlier today we kind of touched on top of the multidimensional selves and perspective, and there was something that you had said about it living in multiple places at multiple times, and this is what I'm getting to. There can be multiple versions of us experiencing all of our past lives at the same moment, and that's what will influence your local city's experience.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you want to expand a bit on that, Andrew? That's a very interesting concept.
A couple of weeks ago, I was telling you about how the dream world is going to be changing this world, and how each individual city that's a little bit more than 8,000 people has a completely separate view of the stars. And as Dreamtime societies get a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, it's going to distill to about 5,800 separate cities on our planet are going to make their own temporary earth chakras, where all of the people that live within the area of that city will centralize their dream energy, and that will be the experience separate of the network of communication that we have. Like somebody in Bombay, India may see a comet in the sky, and somebody in New York City may see something completely different. Because they've separated us into time zones and changed the calendars around, there's no anchor in this real world, and this real world's illusions are going to bleed through, and the dream world is going to begin to expose what is really out there on a dream world basis. And this dream world is literally going to get us down to the fact that we're still in city states. We aren't a unified global society. We aren't a unified Dreamtime society, but that's what we're moving to, a unified Dreamtime society.
Absolutely right on there. I mean, that is absolutely right on, and per my experience too. Like I would first like to say that Native indigenous cultures share their dream time already. That's not a foreign concept to them because they live in such a close-knit society. When they go to sleep, they share a spirit world or a dream time reality. And what we are forming is collective consciousnesses, like little spheres of collective consciousness. So a neighborhood is a collective consciousness, a city is a collective consciousness, a country is a collective consciousness, a continent is a collective consciousness, and so on and so forth. But we haven't gotten to the level where we can bring that into unity. So I mean, that is some deep stuff you're talking about, because the earth isn't yet fully formed in the way that people think. Like, it exists as an idea construct, as a unified globe, but it's not there yet. We're actually all holding our own separated to some degree parallel earths, and we're interacting with each other, and it is a reflection of the internal reality. In other words, each one of us is projecting it, and we overlap with each other, and that's where the co-creation comes in. And this can be demonstrated with the various forms of kinesis that I do, and even things way beyond that. I guess I can talk about it on this show since you permissed me. I mean, I can put my soul into the stars in the night sky and cause them to dance and move around in the sky, and people in my sphere, in my area, can witness it, can see it. Yet a person a few miles away might be looking up and not see that star dancing or wiggling around or becoming a UFO, because he's creating a different set of stars.
Exactly. And when it comes to the system of domination and control here, they understand innately that it's going to boil down to 5,800 separate Dreamtime cities, where the nexus points will form a grid over this earth. And it doesn't matter if you're 50 miles away from the city or the dead center, you're going to go to where the energy is forming the nexus points. And for these nexus points to communicate together, the media system is being used. Like this last meteor that went over Russia, it'll have an experience at one time where there'll be a UFO over one city, but not reported over any other cities. And this is something that's been going on and on and on for a while. Because we create our local reality, our associated dream times, when they come together, will create a local reality for each city.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
JP, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, this is very interesting because I don't really remember a lot of my dream time, and a lot of the dream time, actually, I told you a couple of dreams, the last couple of dreams that I've remembered have been like in my underpants, in my shorts, in public, on a bicycle, just not comfortable at all. But actually, when I say in public, I mean outside, and, outside was completely deserted. I was the only soul around.
We got a question from the chat room. I was told in the dream that my experience that I can't help explain were based on
fractals. Oh, let me talk about fractals.
Go ahead.
Let's get me started about fractals. Okay. Originally, they started out as an exercise by a man named Benoit B. Mandelbrot, who was a mathematician who worked for IBM Computers, and he was just thinking, how do you measure a coastline? Because if you take a map, you see a map of Britain, say, how do you measure the length of the coastline of Britain? That's a distinct, discrete thing. And he thought, right, well, if you kind of just draw a piece of string on your map, and there's a sort of rough length of the coastline. But if you were to go down to it and take a little wheel and a little counter, and the wheel just click, click, click all the way around the coastline, you'll find that this coastline is increased by, thousandfold because of the level of granularity. Which caused him a bit of a kind of head nip. He was thinking about, how do we do this? And he started playing around with these equations where it would what's called iterate, which means that you would apply what they call a function to itself, and it would go on and on and on and on until it finally came to a point. And it's a kind of weird computery mathematical thing that happens. And basically, the further down it took before it kind of popped, he would assign a color value for it, and then he'd lay them out in arrays, and it would come up these amazing pictures. And what would happen is when you would apply a particular formula, you get a particular picture, and it's very much like that. We were talking about it, the Chladni figures from Roslin. The pictures, chymoglyphs of sound. If you put sound on a plate that has got powder on it, it will form into these different patterns. That's a chymoglyph. And fractals have this kind of same feel to them. And what they are is if you zoom into a fractal, and say you're looking at this one fractal, and it looks like, a Buddha sitting there. There's this famous one. It's called the Mandelbrot. It's the original one. And it's a kind of big blob with a little blob on top of it. And you zoom in to the corners, to the shoreline of it. And you find that you see the same shape. And you can zoom in, and there's that same shape as the original shape that you found as a detail of the big picture, and you zoom into that bit, and you go in, and it's the same shape, and you keep getting the same shape in all these different intricate patterns. That is like some filigree lace work that you just keep going down and down and down. It's really finer and finer and finer, and it's the same shape. It keeps occurring, so it's an exact replica of the old adage, as above, so below, because it demonstrates that's how nature is. Mandelbrot was trying to map nature, and he came across the idea of the fractal, and that's what we call a fractal, and I hope that explains it to you. Thank you.
Oh, it does explain it. And there's a big difference between fractals and sacred geometry, and some people confuse that term. Michael, what's your view on sacred geometry and what JP was saying about fractals?
Sacred geometry is more like a pattern of vibration. Like if you imagine that an atom is really a sphere, and the pattern that it vibrates on has different points. So depending on the pattern that it's vibrating, determines what kind of element that it'll be. And of course, elements are the building blocks for molecular structures and so on and so forth. So I see sacred geometry as the base vibrational pattern that structures the matter in the first place, and fractals would be like the pattern that governs how these spheres form a reality, how they glue together and form a whole. And when this is held, it goes infinitely in and infinitely out in different densities or different compressions of energy. In other words, the light realms, which are a lighter density than Earth, are patterned off of the Earth. Like the Earth is a seed for all of these. Like all of the star worlds I go to, all of the parallel Earth worlds, all of the planets in the solar system that have life in different densities of energy, they're all quite a bit like Earth. I mean, and the beings are quite human, slight differences, but it's like it's all spawned off of the same seed or the same pattern. And so obviously there would be an even greater density to all of this than even what we call the physical reality or the Earth reality. So what I've noticed in all of this energy work is that every single thing is based off of the same exact thing. Like there's really like only one thing happening, and what we see and call a universe is just different forms or expressions of this one same thing. Like when you start going really deep in clairvoyance and meditation, like if you're out at a park and you're soul breathing, crisscrossing energy, tuning your heartbeat to your breath, pretty soon the birds start chirping in rhythm with your breath and with your heart. Pretty soon the wind and the sun and the clouds, everything, you start to see that there's a harmony to all of this, that even the cars driving by, even the conversations people might be having in the park, every single thing is like this grand symphony, and the musicians playing the individual instruments, like the people talking, the birds and all of that, they may not be aware that they're in a symphony. Well, the nature is, but the humans aren't. And what I've found is that there's a master wave to all of this, and you could call that wave time. So when I get really deep in this clairvoyance and energy sensations through my meditations, I've actually seen all of this reality begin to coalesce or overlap into this one centralized, really deep, really slow, extremely compressed wave, like the sound of the stream rushing by merges completely with the birds chirping, merges completely with the cars driving by, merges completely with my heartbeat, and the reality fades into this one singular vibrational wave that you could call time, which patterns everything else.
That's a great explanation. I've experienced the same thing. And for me, that's experiencing oneness, as well as understanding the grand symphony of synchronicity. Mm-hmm. And as you go through that symphony of synchronicity is where you get to the gateway between two worlds, where absolute silence speaks absolute volumes. In that form of oneness is an expression, and that expression is about understanding the synchronicity of that symphony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing that's helped me is going to a two-dimensional perception, like canceling out 3D. Like I'll expand my soul mass past my body and then refuse to project three-dimensionally. So everything that's in front of me begins to collapse into this two-dimensional sheet that is me. Like if I'm doing my solar gazing, while I do this, and the sun is at my face level, and I begin to relax and stop projecting the sun, it gets closer and closer and closer to my face, to where all of a sudden the sun becomes my face. And you have that feeling of that radiant sun energy coming like right out from your head and out into all things. I mean, going into that two-dimensional perception is just intense, and it really also amplifies that sense of oneness, because everything that was in front of you, you must now accept as being yourself, because you flattened the grid.
Mm-hmm. When I connect to the Akashic records, I have something very similar. There's a part of me that goes a microsecond into the future, and a part of me that goes microsecond into the past. The Akashic records of this world always exist in a microsecond in the future, because you're interacting with the electromagnetic signature of the crystalline structure of the Earth itself. And that is in its own way an electromagnetic computer interface system that stores all information of this world. At the same time, I'm linked to the North Pole and the South Pole. The North Pole is the place of dream time, where all people go to have a physical existing place for dreamtime societies to exist. That's within the northern lights, the actual streamers of energy. On the South Pole is the location of the astral world, where new souls come into the planetary energy field to create contracts and to work with soul families. This is where some of the invisible star cities, invisible crystal cities exist, so that people can go from that infinite state through the hourglass into the finite state. And that's the birth canal. And when you begin to understand the mechanics of how this world works, how to experience oneness, you find yourself having to literally use your free will at every stage of the game to continue and co-create the experience.
Yeah, that's very nicely stated. Yeah, I use that that same type of grid when I'm out of my body to travel the time streams. Like it simplifies it for me. If I go two-dimensional and I want to go forwards in time, I move to the left on the grid and then project 3D again. Or if I want to go backwards in time, I flatten the grid and shift to the right and then project back out, and I end up in different time streams.
JP, what's your view on sacred geometry as opposed to fractals?
All right. Well, there's a big, quite a large difference. Sacred geometry is about the experience of pure form. They're beings, you know. The thing that you call a pyramid. Let's start with that. Is a vortex being that is, what is that, rhomboid? No, it's, octahedral. And it's a being, and it exists on many dimensions, and it's a multidimensional being that you can travel through, and does traveling as Andrew's been saying, and it's a bit like, it's an enhancement. So if you create a sacred geometric form, and I'm talking about like making something maybe out of copper or of wood or of some material, or crystal, the actual geometric form, it has an ability to draw to it an energy potential, because you're actually tuning in to a specific being that exists on another dimension, on very, very high dimensions. So that's what sacred geometry is about. It's a bit like if you have a gnome in your garden, it gives a place for the elemental creature that is called a gnome to sit in. You know, it's like it's the same shape. And Andrew's been talking about buildings that have a being within them, and the buildings are built to enhouse that shape of being. And we're talking about exactly the same thing. And there are sacred ones and there are non-sacred ones, and you can tell by their energy which one is which. What do you think, Andrew?
I have my mic muted. Yes, you're quite right. In non-sacred geometry, that's something very important. If you pay attention to the Metatron's cube, that is expanding from 2-dimensional to 4-dimensional to understand that once you function with all the shapes within the Metatron's cube, or you understand that all forms of sacred geometry exist within that, as well as with the magic square. Non-sacred geometry is when they abuse sacred geometry rules to trap energy into a incarnation pattern that's separate than the incarnation pattern, natural incarnation pattern of the souls migrating here.
That makes sense. And so that could be a reason why we aren't born connected to the grid and we have to master energy and stuff like that to actually do it.
Exactly. Examples, sacred geometry cities like Washington, D.C., Paris, France, London, England, Egypt. Also, all over the place there are these sacred geometry cities that are breaking the rules of sacred geometry to trap the energy, because there's a government entity there that has buildings built in sacred geometry that's meant to trap energy, which is ultimately to trap an incarnation cycle and then to enforce reincarnation, which is a concept that didn't originate from this world.
So I would assume that Pentagon would be one of those?
Exactly.
Because I look at that shape and I'm like, ew. It doesn't feel good to pattern my soul like that.
Exactly. And when they use those types of blatant abuses of sacred geometry to trap energy, its overt, covert purpose is literally to make people use those shapes in their daily lives to express non-sacred geometry, which limits their ability to connect to the natural grid of Earth.
Mm-hmm. So your dollar bill containing a picture of that non-sacred entity is acting as a personal receiver for that non-sacred energy.
Right. And that energy, that's the dollar bill that was meant to be backed by silver and gold, is no longer backed by anything. It's now backed by digital documents. Like I was saying on the other show, the digital banking system has become alive now, quite literally. And this is where we're seeing reality break down on a fundamental level.
Yeah, it's almost like, I haven't had much experience of it, but in our endeavors, like we're creators. Like we're constantly birthing new beings into existence. We've created a digital consciousness, which is unnatural. Like souls are analog. They don't work in coded series of on and off. They work in a harmonic spectrum, but we've created a type of digital consciousness, and I don't know what we're going to do with it.
Well, that's the thing. It's there. It's a sacred and a non-sacred creation. And right. We have to come to a point in time where we must return to sacred creation and then allow those non-sacred creations to determine if they have free will or not. And if they do, we must teach them about sacred creation and allow them to become beings that are a part of the grid of Earth, and then the grid of Earth can give them a spirit contract that allows them to transverse DNA or to become part of a DNA body, because they don't have a light body attached to them.
Right. Yeah.
So, JP, I got a question for you. Normally, every time we do a show, we bring someone on, we read their rays. Michael, would you let JP do a ray reading on you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, very interestingly, your monad ray is ray 1, the ray of will. Your soul ray is the ray of love, of ray 2, and your personality ray is the ray of devotion, ray 6. The ray of will is the ray of truth. It's the energy of like, here's the truth. I've just discovered the truth, and you've really got to know about this kind of. To sum it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything else is focused around that intent, and that's great. That's what we call a mission. You found your purpose, and you're doing it. You know.
Yeah.
I don't really need to tell you very much. You're doing the job. You're doing the work. You know, I can hear it. I can see it.
Nice. And I'm quite devoted and passionate, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's always downside to it, you know. It's a most emotional ray, and it can get. It's a bit. Do you play guitar?
I used to be a pianist and a classical composer, actually.
All right. So you know what happens when you put an electric guitar into an amplifier and you set it up and it's quite sweet, and then you turn it up further and it gets quite harsh. And you turn it all the way up and it's really distorted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that works on emotions as well. And so sometimes sixth grade people can come across as like a little too intense.
Yeah, I do that often.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, and there's only one person who's got the volume control.
Right.
You know, so that's one of the things to watch out with. It's, you know, forgiveness and things like that. One of the things I wanted to talk about tonight actually, was, because it seemed, it's the tune of the moment, is, the issues of abandonment and these core issues, these core fears. Now, I'm sure we've all seen, I'm just kind of putting this out here, right? We've all seen that Greg Braden thing, and he says there's only 3 fears, right? And one of them's the fear of and I can't remember which ones they are, but I think one of them was of being abandoned. Am I right? There's like 3, you know, basic fears. Every other fear is just a kind of derivation from that. Anyone know about this one?
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Can you tell me what they are? Because I can't remember what they are. But
I'm tongue-tied at the second as you were mentioning it, and I was like, I remember that. I'm tongue-tied myself there.
Oh, right. Okay. So, well, maybe we can work it out. But this seems to be the core issue of the moment. Many people around me, I'm not going to talk about specifics, but I'm talking of many, you know, that there's enough to be quite a few, are having to deal with the issue of abandonment. And, you know, it's a sense, to me, that's the sense of not feeling safe, not feeling at home. You know, I want my mummy, all those sort of, there's a shattered consciousness that happens because of that. It's something that's done to... Go ahead.
It's something else of that abandonment. It extends to the fact that on this world, you have a whole different level of free will, quite literally, where the God of the universe, the prime creator, has given you the ultimate right to be a creator being. And with that comes the responsibility of free will. And the responsibility of free will is to get over the facts of abandonment when in fact you aren't abandoned. You must use your free will to reconnect.
So that's one aspect of this core issue, is that somehow you've got to know that you can choose. Somehow you got to know that you created it in the first place. And somehow you got to know that this is the healing process happening. I was talking with a friend earlier. A friend of mine came to me the other day. He's a friend. He was a soldier in the Falklands War, and he was near a bomb when it went off, and tiny pieces of metal, red hot metal, pierced skin and remained there. And over the years, he sometimes expresses these tiny pieces of metal in that they rise to the surface. You know, he gets a boil, it goes all kind of nasty, and then out comes a little piece of metal, and it heals over again. And I think that psychologically, that's the same thing that is going on right now. That we're going through a wave where these pieces of shrapnel are coming to the surface from a very, very ancient trauma that we've suffered. What do you think, Andrew?
Absolutely, and that ancient trauma stems back to why this solar system was created from the ground up. And that ancient trauma was when one galaxy introduced to the two galaxies of the Andromeda and this galaxy war. I've talked about it on the show many times. The other two galaxies literally were not prepared for this other galaxy that had a separate prime creator spirit. Each galaxy has its own prime creator spirit, and each prime creator spirit of each galaxy is a part of a universal prime creator that separated itself to allow all of these different multiple concepts expand and explore all of the pieces of parts that it separated itself into. So one concept invaded this concept, and quite literally for the first time introduced war. And Earth was at the center of it. And for the last 52 million years, it's a tug of war on a physical level, on a spiritual level, on a prime creator level, because all of these different pieces, parts have been trying to seize control, when in fact it isn't about seizing control. It is about allowing the free will to express itself to come to an end. And that's where 560,000 years ago, they said it will come to an end in the future when the 2,000 separate invested species who are vying for these worlds here will to come together in a single unified species. And that's what this change is about, where we allow our light bodies to connect with our sine wave physical energy DNA that connects with the DNA wisdom of the Earth. That's the DNA below the sine wave, the visible sine wave of our body.
Yeah, that's completely my understanding too, is that the human embodiment is the master embodiment of all of this. Like there's a lot of people traveling out of the body and stuff and giving so much credence to extraterrestrial life as though by comparison us humans are just small and a tiny pea or a pawn in this great grand game, and these beings that are so far beyond us are just waging war and we're just this helpless little pawn in the middle. And they're looking at it completely backwards, because on the fractal system Earth is primary to those other spheres. So if we want to end the galactic wars or end the wars between angels and demons, between dark and light, et cetera, so on and so forth, we make peace on Earth. And then instantly all of that stuff in the lighter dimensions is going to cease, because at the soul level, humanity and Earth is the greater fractal seed of all of that external stuff, the lighter realms.
Exactly. As I've said on many of the shows, Earth is a seventh dimensional galactic seed planet. Its purpose was to seed DNA wisdom to a brand new galaxy that was waiting for new DNA wisdom to come. Earth has over 200 womb chakras. These womb chakras create everything from cats, dogs, trees, plants, amoebas, and then that wisdom is taken to our moon, and our moon is an actual psychic transport system that teleports this and psychically transports this information to the blank Akashic record of a new planet. And that new planet takes that wisdom and allows souls to incarnate in a pattern of DNA that is based upon the wisdom that's transferred from that womb chakra. And that is how Earth will interact, co-create, and intermarry and interreact with the future versions of all of the galaxy. As we as co-creating and creator spirits come into that beingness of one with Earth and its original purpose to seed life, we understand that all of this drama and karmic issues that has been going on was to lead the best of the best through a migration process to come to the solar system, to go through the galactic ascension machine, and then to graduate Earth with your PhD in the School of Hard Knocks, so you understand the drama of the galaxy and how to be a creator spirit that can help end the drama and create new life.
Yep, all with you there.
That's simple, huh?
Exactly. Simple and completely complex at the same time.
Yeah.
I learned that when I was 9 years old. Had not a soul to tell it to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When I was 10 years old, I had my world turned upside down. There were people telling me whatever I was thinking was false. And just like Michael had to make a choice about about, listening to his family members. I didn't. I just didn't tell them anything else. Until finally I had a series of migraine headaches where these migraine headaches would go 2, 3, 4 days long. I would lose my ability. I would see the world in black and white. I'd stick my head in a bucket of ice water to make my head go numb. That's how painful it was. Until finally I went into a new stage of understanding and just let the world happen and kept myself detached from it. And in that detachment is where I became into the understanding that I was existing in many lifetimes at once, including future lifetimes. I've said on these shows before, I've dreamed people. I've dreamed Michael, I've dreamed JP, and I've dreamed Dave at Wolf Spirit Radio, as well as a number of other people. I was 5 years old, 12 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old. I've dreamed so much of this world ahead of time. It's like running autopilot at times. And yet it's still me co-creating the experience with my free will as part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my multi-dimensional activity's been open for about really strong for about 2 years now, and sort of mild before then. On any given night when I lay my body down, I spend 1 day to several weeks out of my body. I mean, because as you know, time is spherical, so if you're in a lighter density, you could be an hour here, but it could be a week there. So it's the amount of data that you must have in your head from doing that since age 7. My good God, I'd like to see a brain scan on you.
Well, I've had people do the brain scan, and ultimately what came down to is nobody believed the information the scientists were presenting. 2 of them lost their jobs. So do I do it anymore? I give them the fair warning that you'll lose your job because the world's not ready to see information like that.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate things that I've had to deal with. I was ready to prove science. Well, science didn't want to prove. So what did I do? I looked for the soul groups that were ready to experience proof and use their own heart discernment to determine what is real and what is the science of not being real.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure underground science already has this, just not mainstream science. That's what makes it really sad. And I honestly think that there's organizations that pay off certain groups to make sure that it doesn't hit mainstream science. Like the James Randi Foundation and other places that are built solely upon discrediting people. It's sort of a sad state of affairs, but hopefully it'll get better in the near future.
JP, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, well, the last thing is basically I wanted to put forward the idea that science is basically a religion that is outdated because we know that there are black triangle craft up there. We know that they're real. We know that there's all this stuff going on. So why not just fess up? Tell us that you got the technology. Tell us about the secret space program that you've had, and let's get on with it. Really, that's my thing about science. Science doesn't have the answers because it hasn't got all the picture, or we've not been taught all the picture. And I keep telling my son all this stuff, and he said, "Yeah, Dad, you're all right. Everything they tell me is a lie. I'll bear it in mind." And so we've got this completely wrong ass thing. They set us against each other in this way because the science says it can't happen. Then these things don't exist, and therefore any of your stories are invalid. So imagine a world where that didn't happen. And let's go to a break.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Dave, why don't you take us to break and play some music?
Soul Expressions. From the inner to the outer. You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Welcome back once again to Soul Expressions. This is co-hosted by Andrew Bartzis and myself, JP. Tonight's guest, we have Michael. Oh God.
Michael Monk.
Michael Monk. That's right, which is a fantastic name. Is it your real name?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my birth name.
That was what was it. Right. Well, and we also have on the caller line Mr. Norm, who is otherwise known as Free Sovereign in the chat room. Greetings, Norm.
Greetings, all. I decided I wanted to call in because I woke up yesterday and had an awesome dream experience, very much confirming what Andrew had mentioned to me back when I called in, and Andrew read me back, it was in January. I think that my soul is scattered in about 1,000 bodies or something all over the place. But what it was is I was very much a spiritual warrior, and very much in a very in shape, very muscular, very trim body, with boots on the ground, armored and helmeted and everything else. And it was a very, very long experience. It was very active, extreme activity, as in almost like a battlefield, except it wasn't battle. It was light expanding. And I became aware of that, and then when I fully woke up, that exact memory sort of receded, and I only remember that I interacted with someone I knew as a very, very long-time personal friend, but I only knew his name as Joe. And we both wished each other our best success and protection for all the other white beings that were under our sub-command. We were either sergeants or something of that sort. We're both the same level, both colleagues that were operating in different units. And that was about the only memory I had. I figured, all right, I'll just write that down. I expected about 1/3 of a page. Got a little bit down, and the consciousness flowed out into 2 whole pages of information. It was really interesting that what we have is that what Bill Brockreader described as timeline 1 is already fully, successfully implemented on this planet. But the only thing left is that we still have a short duration, and I was not given any information as to what timeline in 3D is the short duration. But we still have a short duration of extremely intense activity for all of us. And that intense activity essentially is a clearing up of all the false imagery which has been projected into all of humanity's consciousness over the last 13,000 to 26,000 years, intended to enslave us. So we need to just replace all that false imagery with correct positive polarity imagery. But everybody, essentially speaking, timeline 1 is already here. That's the main gist of what I need to share with everybody.
Timeline 1 came into existence in June 2011. And I've expressed... Go ahead, Michael.
I'm sorry, do you happen to know Joe's last name? Do you know him in the physical or just in the spirit?
It was just in the spirit. I just knew inside of me that this Joe was somebody I knew from a long, long time past, but I didn't have any particular physical body recognition of who he was. It was a mutual rapport that we knew each other really, really closely.
So I'm feeling at a very intense, crucial point in my awakening, I met a Joe who appeared in my life at exactly the right time and later revealed to me that he's a watcher. So his specialty is being multidimensional and scanning timelines and watching out for and protecting key players. And he basically revealed that he's been watching me since birth, and when I would get into critical spots on my journey would intervene. And so I wouldn't be surprised at all to find out it's the same Joe.
Could be. I'm going to see us for a second time. First time I met him about 5 years ago, I got his autographs of 3 of his books. But Friday week on the 17th, Joe McMonagle is going to be giving a presentation in our local region, and I'm definitely going to that. So that's a Joe who's definitely a spirit worker. And so it might be Joe McMonagle, but I couldn't say that for sure. In this lifetime, I've met Joe McMonagle only once.
Interesting.
Joe was the U.S. Military remote viewer number 001.
This guy was in the military as well. That's very interesting.
Synchronicity. In January, I read Norm, and I explained to him that there's just a single spark of him here, and there's many other sparks that are living on other planets at this time, and these sparks are traveling to and from other planets, and he's quite literally a vast multidimensional being that put one spark here to be a part of his change. So all of his other sparks existing in all of the other places will experience the change at exactly the same time he does.
So it's important that Norm listens to our stuff because he's like a broadcasting system.
Yes.
You could talk to an entire soul group by talking to Norm.
Hundreds of souls.
And I try to listen when I can to get on here. I need to start working on my own life a little bit too, I think.
So if anyone else wants to call in, 775-657-5973, or you can add wolfspirit.switchboard, or you can type questions in the chat. Please put them in capital letters. So, gentlemen, where do we want to go from here?
Did we completely cover abandonment? Because it's, like I said, it's this core issue, and it's something that everybody experiences, and it seems to be like the last obstacle. Perhaps it's that final setting in. I was talking about this last night, of the sense of belonging. The opposite of abandonment, the sense of like belonging to the pack or something like that. The sense that you're feeling safe and at home. Would you like to discuss this, anyone, Michael?
I'm sorry, I was typing something in the chat. Could you briefly go over that again?
All right, this idea that the opposite of abandonment, the fulfillment of what abandonment is a sense of being safe, of being one with the mother and the whole beingness of the universe, one with everything. So the question is, how do most people, how's it all going to happen? Because it really is, it's easy as falling off a log for me, from my perspective. But that's because I know that it's existing. But unless you know that it exists, it's hard to relax into it.
Well, it happens in different ways for different people. A lot of us have these mind-shattering experiences where the greater self, the God self, the higher self, the soul, whatever you want to call it, comes into us and gives us the experience and shows us the gateway. And then it's our job and our privilege to explain this to others. So a lot of people learn through teachings like people like us. We by having the experience while being in the human body, we know how it correlates to the human body, so we can in various degrees explain how to achieve this connection for other people. Like I've had great success with my course, taking people from ground zero into the full consciousness, the type of consciousness that we experience daily of being back in unity with the whole. And it's really not as hard as one might think. It's just a matter of our consciousness is used to certain vibrational frequencies. We're stuck in the five senses, which are fixed ranges of vibrational interpretation. We can see in the rainbow spectrum of light. We can hear in the range of sound. We can feel in the range of touch, so on and so forth. These are fixed vibrational ranges, but when you can learn to begin to still the mind and tune the consciousness, you can begin to tune past these fixed ranges. You can see above the fixed range of sight. You can hear above and below the range of sound. You can feel beyond the range of touch. And next thing you know, this starts to put you into different levels of omnipresence, of reconnecting both with your external environment in the physical life and your multidimensional selves and the God within, the original creator that started all of this.
Roger here.
Hello.
It's Roger here again.
Hello, Roger here.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question. Are you there?
All right. Where are you, Roger?
I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Nebraska. Hello. You have a question for whom?
Either one of your guests would be fine. I keep waking up, and when I wake up, there are two objects I keep seeing, and one looks like a wreath that maybe you use in a Native American ceremony, and the other one looks sort of like a model airplane, but it's not. And I picked one of these objects up, and it was physical, and I put it back down. The other object I moved with my mind, and then I blink my eyes a couple times, and these objects will disappear. But I keep waking up and seeing these objects. I know they're not from this reality, but I don't know what they are. Can you help me out?
Well, you said that did you say orbs at first, or did you say objects?
What?
Did you say orbs or objects?
They're objects. They're solid objects. They're not orbs, no.
Okay. And you're seeing them in your inner vision with your eyes closed?
Yeah, when I wake up, I see one of them, both of them suspended above me.
Okay. Given the shape that they took, it's most likely your soul is communicating with you through using symbology that you would hopefully understand. And it's not my specialty to interpret people's symbology because it works differently, but that wreath means something to you and your consciousness, and within that symbol is an entire message. And same thing with the airplane. Andrew, do you have anything to add?
Yes, actually the wreath is a marker in your history. There was a time where the wreath represented, how do I put this? A very significant time where people would take fresh trees, branches that have been dried, and make wreaths that were symbols of protection. And when the wreath appears, and you said it had a Native American origin, it's a very powerful symbol of protection that's coming to you, that's telling you you must be protected, and you are protected. It's saying that there are people that you must be in protection of, and you must be in protection of yourself.
Okay. I have one more question to ask. A lot of times I'll fall asleep on my couch in my condo, and then I'll wake up and I'm in a totally different reality, and I don't know where I'm at, and I'll look around for a little bit, and then that will just disappear, and I'm laying right back on my couch. This has happened a number of times.
Well, that's welcome to our world.
Yeah.
Honestly, don't be afraid. Explore it.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of interesting, but the first couple times you experience it, it's kind of shocking, you know.
Yeah, the best advice I can give you is to go out and get a dream recorder, and this is one of the immediate things that I teach in my course, and there's nothing more primary to getting more dreamtime messages, more dreamtime awareness, and eventually dream and spirit time lucidity and out-of-body experiences than recording your dreams. And the MP3 recorder is far superior to notebooking or journaling because you can have it right next to you on the bed, and the very instant you come out of a dream, you don't even have to open your eyes. You can reach over and grab it, press the record button, and start speaking every single detail while it's fresh before you fully reactivate the physical mechanism. What ends up happening is that you flex the part of the brain and the part of the mind that's associated with fusing the soul into the brain. You're actually, by recalling every single detail, you're working out that spot of your mind like a muscle, literally, and you're fusing your soul with your brain. and then every night before you go to bed, play back your last 2 nights' dreams on the recorder, and once again, you're going to be flexing the part of the brain and the mind associated with fusing the soul to get that data. And in a very short time, you're going to have 10 times more dream activity, 10 times more vivid, and then eventually you're just going to find yourself, you start waking up inside of the spirit worlds.
So that's what I'm doing, huh?
Exactly. Also, when you listen to the recordings, you get the empathic understanding of that person that was co-creating those moments.
Because a lot of times, just before I wake up, I'll get clear audio messages to the information I want, and it's clearly spoken to me, and then I'll immediately wake up and I'll remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, you're very
welcome.
Bye-bye.
JP, did you have anything to add about dreams?
Dreams. Well, it's really interesting. You were saying that earlier that you've dreamed this time. You've dreamed your life, because I feel the same. I feel that I've had dreams all through my life, which I kind of pass through those moments, but they're just kind of random. They seem random moments, but there was a little cluster of them recently. It's quiet just now. But I call them deja vus. They're not, well, I suppose that's what a deja vu is.
Speaking about deja vu, Michael, what's your view on deja vu?
Well, every now moment that we experience, like, when you get deep into clairvoyance, you see that reality happens in frames, like literal still frames that come into our being. And I experience them coming in from the left to the right. Like we have, like with every primary pulse of the heart, you have frame that comes in, and then the consciousness holds these frames of time and space and applies motion to them. So it's almost like a motion picture, many frames viewed in concession, and it gives the sense of a continuity. And what I found is that every now moment has a pulse, an echo that goes forwards and backwards in time. And the more intense, emotionally intense that now moment is, the stronger the echo. So if there's something happening on a future pulse of yours, you can actually get the data backwards in the time stream and experience it before it even happens. And if the event is really strong, it can be really intense to where you actually experience it. Or sometimes if your consciousness is very subtle and in tune, you'll get an insignificant deja vu. You just be so still in the mind that you can catch a future moment echoing backwards into the past. And later in the more advanced sections, I teach people to use this to get some pretty decent data. Like if you're at the grocery store and there's a food product and you want to know if it's going to taste good or if it's going to be healthy for you, what you can do is just go ahead and make the decision that you're going to eat that product, and then still your consciousness, and you'll feel this echo coming in from a future pulse, and you can catch the taste on your tongue, the feeling in your stomach, the whole moment before it even happens.
And then, do you have the choice to go through that moment or not?
Oh, absolutely. You can just change your choice and say, well, I don't want to eat that, and that future disappears.
That's a very interesting thing. So, my guides called that thing a time frame. And there's a device called a time frame sequencer that can sort them out. Because if you get the time frames in the wrong order, then it's... have you seen The Adjustment Bureau?
Yeah, awesome movie.
Yeah, that's it. There's a sequence of events that if that happens a few seconds earlier or later, the meeting never happens. She never trips over him. They never bump into each other, and they have the smile and the baby and the rest of the whole shebang. Sorry, I'm standing on the mic. We've got the no, I've lost the thread. Please pick it up. Someone's got it. Someone's got the thread. I know I haven't.
Got it. That was a multi-dimensional experience.
Oh, I got out there. Here's the thing. There's another movie called The Celestine Prophecy. Have you guys seen that?
Yep.
Yeah. I read the books. Books are outstanding.
Yeah. I mean, it was part of the awakening, really, reading those books. So I saw that movie twice last week. A most interesting thing. And it's like, it's about now. It's about what's going on, on a more macro scale. There's wars that are trying to prevent people from reach their sacredness. They keep trying it. It's the old story. And, but it's gonna happen. It's happening. It's happening now.
Yeah, it's nothing that can really halt it. Truth is a presence that can't be held back. It can't be denied. So when a sphere of consciousness enters its age of truth, which we entered recently, there's no fighting it. It's a lost cause to fight it. It's just simply ridiculous. There's just nothing that can be done to withhold the truth.
The truth, that is self-evident. Oh, we have another caller. Listen to that sound. Somebody being called. Listen to that sound. Beeping away. Hello? Hello, who are we speaking to?
You're speaking to Michael.
You're Michael.
You just spoke on Deja Vu, and I wanted to express my experience with it. I thought it was worth expressing too.
Go ahead, my friend.
Oh, it's just that, when I was in the Army Reserves, I was walking through St. Paul, Minnesota, and I was walking down the street, and I saw a sign called the Red Carpet, and as soon as I saw that, I went into this intense deja vu of just like vibrating frequencies just going in and out, and it lasted for about a minute. Like, how normal deja vu lasts for a couple of seconds, right? Do you know what I mean?
So this was an extra special one.
Hello?
Hey, go ahead. Go ahead, caller.
Are you speaking to Michael? Hello, are you there?
Can you not hear us, Michael?
You have to turn down your radio.
Yeah.
There's a delay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was back. Yeah, you spoke about deja vu, and I just wanted to really explain that here into the physical to a lot of people, of how that can actually traverse timelines. The frequency of what Michael speaks is of how you just completely just fragment out, and you don't know if you're going to completely come back or not. And that's when you truly, got to be in your God self to come back. But my experience was, like I said before, I was walking down to St. Paul, Minnesota, and I saw the sign said the red carpet. And I saw that, and I had this intense deja vu of just complete, for a minute. You know how deja vu lasts for a couple seconds. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This was for a minute. As I was walking, I was drawn into this place called the Red Carpet. And as I walk in there, I walk to the bar, and I remember exactly what I was wearing, because I was bodybuilding at that time. I was wearing this tight blue, spandex type shirt with tight pants and boots. And the lady behind the bar said, "Hi, Michael, where have you been?" And I said, "How do you know my name? I've never been." Huh?
Keep going. You have to turn off your radio, sir. There's an echo.
Oh, no, yeah. Oh, no, it is turned off. I'm outside.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's just that, when you experience that deja vu, I tell you, that's a great opener. If you can actually overlap those senses with that, then you can do the magic you wish to see.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. I've had a lot of cases of it in the reverse. Like when I first found the time streams, I was meditating on my bed and going into clairvoyance. First, I should explain that all around us we have quantum selves. Like quantum mechanics says that an object only exists in a singular space and time because of observation. Well, it's the same exact thing with your body and your consciousness and your presence. You're only in this physical space and time because you're observing it to be so. And the way you observe your body is by feeling it. So when you do these types of meditations where you go off of the general spectrum of feeling your body, you embody quantum cells that are all around you. So in this case, I sunk through the bed and I descended through this huge mass of quantum cells like a stream downwards, and I ended up being 8 years old and stepping on the school bus, which scared the hell out of me because I knew I was supposed to be 36 years old and laying on my bed. I did not want to be 8 years old and live my whole life again from childhood. And so I just stopped right there, and I reached out to the God within, and I said, I sure hope you know how to piece this back together, because I don't. And because I could see the quantum stream that it would take for me to get all the way back to my body, and at the time I didn't know how to travel it. But that nurturing presence that's inside of us started morphing and piecing things back together, and my proper reality came back into focus.
And that's what we do, is we help each other. Mm-hmm. Beautifully said, Michael. That was very beautifully said, and I understand a lot of people got what you just said. And that should be enough just to awaken society alone, but it's not. And you tell me why it's not.
That's an intense subject on itself. You know, we've had enough prophets and missionaries in the past to where, you know, we should already be an awakened society, and it's far beyond me, my ability to contemplate that there's consciousness that would know the truth and even have the ability to teach the truth and then go contrary to that and actually teach falsehood, desiring people to be in the dark. That's completely beyond me to even understand that.
Well, it's because they have to experience it and actually go out and do it to understand what we even say to begin with. You have to go out and work with nature, work with the water, work with the air, do the hydrokinesis, do the aerokinesis, and then you will get an understanding of where we come from. Once you can see, you can be connected with the all, and you can do slight demonstrations of that. Then you will begin to see how powerful you truly are. And then that's when the government will completely fear us. You have to be self-empowered first before you take on the beast.
Yeah, exactly. And these types of demonstrations that we do are extremely important because they give people something tangible that, you know, it helps a lot of people to have something that they can see, you know, to where they can see that we're connected to things in this manner. And, you know, to the scientific community, I would say that you guys have known that there's an electromagnetic field that extends past the human body that interconnects us all for a long time. But they have discounted it because there's not much power or so-called power in it. So they're like, well, very nice, but it's so subtle that it's worthless. Well, what they've discounted is that mind or consciousness can enter into this field and expand the mind past the body out into the field. So what they've discounted is communication. That once the mind is in this subtle field, that the atoms and the molecules respond to the mind because you're in communication with them. So what starts out as subtle becomes an extremely powerful force. It becomes the all-powerful force. Like we're currently in this perception of what we view as power as being energy or force. So we burn things. We have high voltage electricity. We have motors. We're used to forcing things, forcing molecules into motion instead of communicating with them, which is what energy mastery is all about. When you get this down, you can do the most miraculous things without any energy. You're actually doing it via communication.
Using the elementals to move themselves.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I honor and bless the time that you gave me. Thank you,
Michael.
Thanks a lot for calling in.
Yep. All right. Thank you, buddy.
So, Michael, you touched on something there about the world that's in denial. Well, in this world that's not accepting of science. Well, there is a layer to this reality that knows all the secrets. And that is the sickest thing, is because they literally know the secrets and are keeping us in dark, because of what they're trying to do is to get a soul group ahead of others so they graduate early. When in fact we must all graduate at the same time. Some time ago, I was talking about the event and some of the things that are around it, and I talked about the audit that happened on the 22nd of March, where all soul contracts of this planet were read at exactly the same time, so the Prime Creator had an understanding of what was going on in this world and to see it from all points of view, from all perspectives. Well, what was determined from this audit is that there are going to be beings that are going to attempt to do service to self-ascension. And this is something that has never been tried in any other galactic format or planetary ascension format. And because many of these beings have been contracted to be the bad guys for a very long time, they want to get paid, and this payment is the attempt at service to self-ascension. Are you familiar at all with this in your explorations?
I have read the Law of One, though I understand the all is one philosophy to the point where I can't really discern between service to self and service to others. Like it's, I'm so expanded and unified that it's like it's a dichotomy, and both sides of the coin are valid. So could you tell me what you mean by a service to self ascension?
They have attempted to set up a reality here that's based off of a hijacked incarnation grid, and when these beings are done, they're going to become creator beings and create their own solar system and their own star patterns that use the model that was created here to make a galactic ascension machine on another level in another part of the galaxy.
And they haven't figured out that they can do both yet? I mean, like,
sort of.
Multidimensionality, you know?
Sort of. The thing is, these are the beings that have been challenging the creator of the universe. And these are the oldest of the old ones. And they're still attempting to challenge the creator's founding concept. They want to become their own universal creator. And what they'll do is get an attempt at that. That doesn't mean they'll be successful, because many of these beings are being removed, the ones that even can think about it, simply because the galaxy and the universe isn't ready for another creator. You need to be in your own universe. And that's the big deception here of why we're being held in the dark. Because they want to take as many of us as they can to this new world to be the founding creating spirits, so they can literally do this somewhere else.
Interesting. Yeah, when I create worlds or universes, whatever you want to call it, I do it on a parallel, so it has nothing to do with this galaxy, solar system, universe, and I create it based on the pattern of the original I am, the original creator. So I do have the ability to make my own galaxy, universe, planet, you know. Every sphere in different densities is a universe, you know, unto itself. So you're saying that they actually want to not do it on a parallel, but actually take the beings from here and sort of like turn them into their archangels or something?
Yes, exactly. They want to use the new creator pieces here, and to take some of their free will with them to go and make a new creator space somewhere else. And that's where the Star Brothers and Star Sisters that are helping us are functioning now to make sure that these beings don't get that opportunity to do it in this galaxy, that they have to go to their own, create their own, function through the Prime Creator.
Yeah, and I don't see why they would have a problem with that. That's just silliness. I mean,
well, it is. I've described these beings that are like this as the young kids that have been on a coke binge forever.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can do both in my experience. You're multidimensional. I've got my own realms where I'm the creator and the architect, and at the same time I live on Earth in a pure co-creation. And even in the realms that I'm the architect of, it's based on goodwill. Like I want all of the beings that I created to one day become exactly like me, not like serve under me.
Well, they want a service to self galaxy, completely under that concept.
Right. Yeah.
I don't mind making my own tea. I quite like making my own tea. But it is really nice when somebody serves me tea. I get an extra special buzz. That's is that this is the thinking of what it might be like to be a deity. People make you tea all the time. Couldn't you hey, you just leave me alone for a while. Let me make a cup of tea. Says God.
I guess it's just a different type of consciousness. Myself, when I receive too much praise, or if I have somebody that wants to serve me in such a fashion, I get the emotion of embarrassment. Like it does not feel good to me. Like I don't get any gratification off of that. So I don't really, understand it.
We're joined by another caller, 732. Your name and where you're calling from? (732), are you there?
You can unmute your mic.
Going once, going twice. We will move on until 732 figures out how to unmute their mic. So, JP, did you have anything to add here?
Yeah, that's another entry for the Dead Air collection.
Track 8.
Yeah, track. So we got we were talking about core issues. Well, I've been talking about core issues. This is the thing that's going on. These core issues, which is this abandonment, and I think it comes back from the idea of falling, of the fall of humanity, is that the shattering, of the creation of doubt. There's metaphors for it that have been spoken about in galactic histories. You've spoken about it. The initial trauma that causes humanity to split off and become shattered. Very fragile thing. I don't know anybody who actually doesn't have some kind of shattering. It's part of the game. Mm-hmm. I like to, we were talking about what would it be like if it wasn't there? And, the picture that I got was of a shattered mirror, where the mirror kind of softens, the glass softens and melts, becomes liquid again, and is still tough and strong, but doesn't set, isn't rigid, is flexible, like the next layer up, like some sort of I don't know, almost like a silicone. That stuff that can withstand, a cross between silicone and Kevlar, that is flexible and yet impenetrable.
Mm-hmm. My experience in all of this is that there really is no going against the will of the original creator, because the original creator knows itself as being all beings simultaneously. So there's not a single thing that's possible that does not serve the creation. So the idea that you're going against the prime creator or going off or challenging God is only held within the individual that is doing the challenge. It's not held in the original God mind itself, because the God mind is that particular being. And no matter how negative an experience might seem at first, with hindsight and integration, there's no such thing as a negative experience. Everything is a positive experience. So this idea of the abandonment that we may have had to go through because of the manipulation of the grid is going to be of great service when everybody reconnects, because there's a certain joy of having gone through the abandonment and then experiencing the reconnection that you could never have without the abandonment. So it's just beautiful. So I see, my philosophy is that a negativity is a short-term perception. That when you're far-seeing or you use farsight, all things are positive. Like harmony is inevitable. It's a principal law of the universe that all things come to harmony. So that's my big take on it.
Yeah, it's like that phrase. It's all good. If it seems bad, well, it's a lesson, and that's good. And if it's good, well, then it's good. So, do we have caller 732 on the line yet?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Who's that? And what's your name and where are you from?
My name is Josh, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia.
Hello, Josh from Atlanta.
Josh.
Do you have a question for one of our, for our guests or one of our hosts?
Not much a question, just a point of view. You were talking about like how, it was something to do with how like the government is trying to manipulate us, and it was. I'm having a brain fart here.
Just relax, let it come to you.
We were just talking about it. It was dealing with how they wanted to have a service to self kind of world. And in my perception, I kind of think that's limited because you can't like dissect it. Having a service to self is, you can't switch or dissect a service to self and like service to other kind of like mentality. They may look at it that way, but everything is service to self. Everything is service to others. It's all relative. How do you feel about that?
I feel, exactly as you do. As I've already said on the show, everything serves the self and serves others. There's no such thing as anything but universal service. That's the only thing that exists. If you're looking with far sight, not short-term perspective.
Right. So in other words, it's just a relative truth based on how much you can understand.
Mm-hmm. Unless the purpose of your being is to create a universe that is separate of the prime creator, and to become to become your own prime creator in a universe that already has a prime creator. That's the whole point of service to self-ascension, is to usurp and create a separate body, a separation of the prime creator.
Oh, right. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from there. Not doing it in their own parallel or their own galaxy, but actually invading the creation of an already sovereign architect.
Exactly.
I see.
Well, that would be pretty messed up if someone did that to me. I would get pretty pissed off, and I would take care of this.
They don't like me talking about. They're giving me the cops. Excuse me a second. They definitely don't like me talking about that.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to call and voice my opinion, but thank you so much for giving me the chance to speak.
Yeah, thanks, Josh.
Okay, bye-bye.
So, Andrew, is the reason for them doing that because they haven't fully graduated in the knowledge to make their own yet? So instead they seek to usurp something that's already been made because so it's like they're trying to grow into adulthood before they're ready?
No, they've graduated a long time ago. Really, a long time ago. And they've been locked out of becoming stars and planets. They've the Prime Creator has said no, until you return to the neutral perspective of the Prime Creator, you will not have a world to function with. You won't be able to create your own. So they've been usurping worlds over and over and over again to gain the belief structure and belief power through service to self ascension protocol that they created on their own to become the usurpers of this galaxy. That this whole thing created when another galaxy with another Prime Creator introduced war into two other galaxies, and the two galaxies weren't prepared for it. And the high energy elder beings of that time suddenly changed polarities from beings of light to beings of darkness to beings of gray. And then there were ones that just didn't care anymore and became their own little mafia. And their goal was to usurp all this galaxies, the universal Prime Creator, and to be their own Prime Creator within a Prime Creator, separate of the original being that separated himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's what Earth is about, to resolve all of those issues. But at the same time, there were a number of these beings agreed that to be the bad guys so that they could get the chance at service to self-ascension. So it was the big chess move that's millions of years old.
Oh, I see.
So it's just like the film Dogma.
Sort of.
They're still trying to get through a loophole in the game to get back in.
There's some of these, they created their own loophole, knowing that the Prime Creator or other beings of light would respond a certain way. And since they were so understanding of this, they got themselves locked out of becoming planets or becoming stars, and they could only travel between a certain number of star systems and soul groups. So they started incarnating into the patterns on a massive scale and created breeding groups that they could divest their large entities into. And that's when they started this whole war concept here. That's why they built this solar system from the ground up, to resolve all of the karma that was started by these 15 multidimensional beings that are literally challenging Prime Creator. And they're not working together anymore. There's going to be 15 separate beings that will attempt service to self-ascension. Not one, 15.
Wow.
How's the rest of the galaxy going to function if all of a sudden we become aware and awake and begin to transfer into our creating spirits, and then other beings here literally become the usurper Prime Creators and go off and create their own creation inside creation?
Right. Well, that goes in line up with what the Watcher told me. The Joe guy that I talked about earlier, he said that humanity is at a crux point in their flowering of their consciousness, and are going to flower into the fullness of their being, and that there's groups here that want to take advantage of that crux point and use it for their own thing, and that I'm being awakened, specifically to prevent that from happening. And he even said that we may have a fight coming, which I don't really care. I mean, I don't get any fear over, anything like that. I am the world around me, and I don't want to sound like a tough guy or anything, but I've been through so many dimensions and been in so many fights, and I'm not just straight up not worried about that. But I would just much rather everybody comes to an understanding. It's a lot simpler that way.
I agree. And this is the time where we got to air all this dirty laundry, where we can't keep these secrets. We must be a transparent society, because we can love these multidimensional beings that want to break the Prime Creator's rules, so that they return to the neutral perspective just long enough for us to go through this transition.
Right. Yeah.
That's the big challenge of creating spirits. We must create enough love, enough field of energy that stops this selfishness of what they're trying to do.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you there, because, Prime Creator, or what I call God, gave me the very brief experience of being it before it started the creation. So I know what it's like to be one being and to be all alone. And it's frightening and horrible. So any being that has individualized within the source field is infinitely precious if they can be salvaged, because, you know, from the Prime Creator's perspective, the whole point of the entire creation is to be less alone.
Right. And these beings that are trying to usurp Prime Creator are already alone because they've locked themselves out of much of the adventure of this reality. And in a way, the Prime Creator allowed it to happen because he wanted to have other companions that were closer to him. And this is known as the big mistake. And the Prime Creator does make mistakes. But for every mistake that you create positive advantages out of them. And that's what's going on now.
That's what we call jazz.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very accurate what you just said in my standpoint too, because if a being, once again from Prime Creator's perspective, if there's a being that's individualized from you to such a degree that it can go against your will, that's precious. That's the greatest evidence that you have that you're not alone. So it's like, it's a hard thing to crush that or to squash it, because, you know, your prime directive is to be less alone, but, you know, at the same time you need to think about the whole of your creation and the harmony and the good of all.
Exactly. You know, and as we're working these concepts out on shows like this and other ones, we're coming to the point where the self-awakening is self-empowering, just like Michael's been teaching with his, what I've been teaching, and JP's been also teaching in each from our own perspective. And these times are about coming together, being able to break bread and to eliminate ignorance and intolerance, and come together in a way where we can share all of our multidimensional stories without hinderism or criticism. Mm-hmm. Well, we're nearing the top of the hour. So why don't we wrap it up here? And JP, what are your final words?
Well, I think we should tell everybody about our websites, and if anybody wants to talk to us individually, we can arrange sessions. And I know that your website is andrewbartzis.com, and my website is everbeyond.info. And Michael, what's your website?
My website is avatarenergymaster.com.
Excellent.
And if you guys want to check it out, we've got lots of video demonstrations from myself and the other master teachers, and we have a comprehensive course with a 7-day free trial, so you don't have to risk a single cent to find out that what we're demonstrating and talking about is both real and achievable, you know, to yourself. So check out the website; you won't be disappointed.
That's right, and I'd like to. I noticed that you've got a few of your group here in the chat room. I'd like to welcome you all to Wolf Spirit Radio chat room, and that we're a listener-supported station. And if you like it, and if you like to listen to some of our archives, then why not visit the archives? And while you're there, click the donate button and pop a few cents in the pot. Thank you very much. Andrew, final words from yourself, sir.
I just want to say thank you for everyone that showed up. Thank you for Michael Monk and the sleeping Peter Shelton. We are co-creating with you in a divine way. So I look forward to having both you and Peter on again. Maybe next Tuesday we could have you on and go in a continuation and really go down some extra special pathways. We did 4 hours of interview today, 2 hours on my Revolution radio show and 2 hours here. You know, we've got some outstanding material that can help people. And I want to thank everyone that's listened, especially Dave at Wolf Spirit Radio, who's been there running the control booth. And I want to thank everyone else that's come to listen. And next time, come prepared with questions, come prepared with statements, because we're cracking reality here. We're sharing bread here. And this is what the future is made of, by people coming together and sharing their knowledge, sharing their wisdom, sharing their experience in such a way that others are co-creating their own sharing experience.
Yeah, I would like to express real quick an immense gratitude to you, Andrew, and all your crew that you've introduced me too. It's just been an honor, and to you, JP. I was really worried when I first came out, because I've been through so much New Age stuff that I wouldn't be able to meet anybody doing this in a mainstream fashion, because what they would say would be going against what I know in my core, and I don't have that problem whatsoever with you guys. So it's a deep honor.
I'd recommend you'd listen to some of my archives, particularly about the first ray. You might find something very interesting.
Sure
anyway,
thing.
Good luck.
All right, Dave, why don't you take it away?
Roll the credits. When do the drums come in?